Greetings and welcome to the Shiny Rock Space Program. For lack of a better name, we'll come up with something, maybe, I don't know. This is Truckster Rock, and we're going to put a probe into a parking orbit that will later fly out to one of the moons of Jool. Should be a lot like the other one, but this one has some nuclear engines hanging off the sides of it, so I can get more delta V out of it, more efficiency. But we're going to have the same deal as the other launch that maybe you saw, maybe you didn't. We got 3 strap-on boosters and a center stack. They all fire at the same time. Then we do the launch clamps once they're up to speed. Otherwise it falls down and goes boom, which is cool, but it's not what I'm trying to accomplish. And we're going to launch this puppy up into a parking orbit. So, SAS is on. Throttle is full. We'll probably have to throttle down a little bit. You can see our thrust away. It's about 1.37. We're going to want to drop that down to 1.2 range, so we don't go too fast through the lower atmosphere. Okay. Let's bake this cake. Engines on. Launch clamps released. Pretty cool, you can see our shadow going away. There's the rest of the space agency. Never to be seen again. Okay, we're gonna let this thing get over 1,000 meters, 1,500 thereabouts, and we'll start to pitch it over. Again, we want to do this gently, otherwise it can flip out and want to go the wrong way. But depending if it's too stable, then we'll have to kind of force it over. We want to get this done in a reasonable pace so that we don't have too peaky of a flight. We want it to try to start wrapping around the planet. Flying through the clouds, one of my favorite things. Without the clouds, it's a lot less real. Yeah, generally my goal is to be about 45 degrees over by 10,000 meters. These bigger vessels, they don't like turning that fast. So it's just a matter we get them kicked over as best we can and deal with it. Each one's different. There's no universal hard fast rules. As you can see from the top, we're rapidly rising. We're pushing our way through the atmosphere. Our apoapsis over there and the right is coming up. It's pitching over pretty good. We got about 23 seconds left on our strap-on boosters, at which point we'll stage them away and run off the center stack. Since we're high enough in the atmosphere now, we can have a much higher angle of attack relative to our actual velocity vector without having the consequences that would happen otherwise in the lower atmosphere. Coming up on our staging. Strap-ons away, and there go the fairing shrouds we also jettisoned. That'll let us deploy our antennas for the short range. Set our throttle to max, and we'll continue to pitch this thing over and try to extend our elliptical orbit further around the planet. You can get more of your burn done on the initial deal versus having a huge circularization burn, which I've had happen many times. I've done it before, and we're comparing it to the burns where you don't have to do it. I like it a lot better not having to do it. So as you can see right now, our apoapsis is coming up at a more reasonable pace. Our periapsis is starting to become less negative. We're just about into out of the atmosphere. The atmosphere by Kerbin's defined to go up to 70,000 meters. Our rate of climb is still pretty good. That's because if you look at the nav ball down here, this is our prograde vector where the rocket's going, and this is where we're trying to aim it. So as you can see, we're still trying to say, hey, let's go horizontal, and it's still pointing up. So you can make it come down faster by pointing it downwards, but I don't like doing that. It just feels wrong. But it probably is the right thing to do if you want to force your apoapsis to stay below a certain number. But this one's looking pretty good. Apoapsis is about to 90,000 meters. Periapsis is still negative, but rising rapidly. As you can see, our rate of climb is starting to drop off. And we got about 36 seconds of full thrust left out of this booster. Once we hit 100,000 meters, we're going to shut off the main engine and coast up to that point and perform our circularization burn. Main engine shut off. We have 2.5 minutes till we have to perform our circularization burn. In the meantime, do one of my favorite things and deploy the solar panels. There's 8 of them in a nice petal pattern. Sorry about the lighting, it's not the best. And you can see out of here also our short range antennas. We'll turn off one of those in a bit. Okay, let's see if we can go to the map view without crashing. Hey, excellent. And the blue line is our current orbital path. Right now it is suborbital. Not a good thing. So we're going to put a maneuver node at the apoapsis, drag it out, and try to circularize. This is just defining what we want to do. Generally when those guys are about 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock is when you're going to get your best point. We got 209 meters per second to do. It's going to work from that. I'm going to go back to the rocket mode. And I'm going to use a flight computer because this is an unmanned rocket. It has a flight computer on board due to the remote tech. I told it to go to the node, so it's going to try to put our heading onto the maneuver node. And then I'm going to tell it to execute the maneuver node, and it's going to do that in 1:18. It's slowly putting itself into position. It's going to hold it there. You can see it says the burn's going to take 16 seconds. We have a little over 23 seconds of fuel left in this bottom stack, so we'll be stuck with that for a bit. We may just drop that and ignore it for when we do the burn to Jool. But in the meantime, we'll let this thing do its deal. You can get a better, nice view of the solar panels doing their deal. This is a mod called Fuse Box up here. It gives us our maximum battery capacity in the current configuration, and that'll change. And what you currently have, what your charge level is, your generation rate, and then your drain rate. And right now that's showing 2 antennas sucking power plus whatever kind of guidance stuff that's active. That's just normal. That's why we'll shut off one of these antennas, and prior to leaving orbit we'll deploy the big antenna that we'll need to be able to talk all the way home from Jool. I suppose you could have put a smaller one on there that will draw less power for during the trip, but that seems silly. Okay, coming up on our burn, you'll get a look at the pointy hot end. It's a little wibbly, but that's what happens when you get a big ass rocket, and it will start to get floppy. That view change is indicative that we are now orbital. It's completed the burn, it's happy, it's no longer controlling the attitude. We're going to turn the SAS back on so this thing doesn't flop around. Done with the flight computer for now, and you can see we have a wonderful circular orbit. We've only got 114 meters per second left in the tank in the bottom here. I'm just going to get rid of that. And this thing, I set this thing up for stage recovery. That's why there's a bunch of parachutes on it. And there's also these engines that they're calling them ullage engines. They're solid motors. They're both basically there to set the liquid fuel into the bottom of the tank, so you know exactly where it's at. I've got them turned upside down, and with this guy, we'll set this guy to point prograde, which he's pretty close to doing anyways. And once he hits a prograde vector, these guys are pointed retrograde, and hopefully that'll be enough to drop that back into suborbital and it'll be recovered. We'll just have to wait for it. Okay, so we're going to stage to drop this whole bottom section. It's going to pop off there. That'll leave these guys, and that'll make my life easier when it's time to go interplanetary. On the count of 1. Here, let's probably want to watch it. That'll be more fun. 1. Bye-bye. And it's already 1.2 kilometers away. I think it's too far to follow. But that should be a significant change in its velocity where it should come back to the planet. I'm running a mod called Stage Recovery, and if you put the proper parachutes and stuff on, even if they would have burned up in real life because they're hanging off the sides and not buried like they need to be, it just looks at, okay, do you have enough where theoretically you could have done it? And the reason for doing that is you get money back, total refunded, and it's based on distance and speed. And so we got something there, but it also looks like, oh, this, it somehow manages to come up with some sort of magic deal to say, okay, this thing's gonna break, you don't get that back. Game's pausing while it autosaves, thank you. And for each of those 3 strap-ons, we're going to get... See, this one I decided that this stuff was more likely, whatever reason. Again, it's based on distance and speed, and to reduce the speed I would need to hang more parachutes, which cost more money. Let's go to the front of this guy and turn off one of these antennas. Save some battery power. Which sometimes is easier said than done. Yeah, we're going to deactivate him. And you can see that one retracts, and our drainage is now 0.7 instead of 1.4. These guys are normally 0.68. This guy's gone red because, hey, we're on the dark side. And you can see that's getting further and further away. We'll accelerate around to the sunny side and show you one more thing. That's getting further away, but based on this, it's getting lower, so that's good. Is catching up to us because it has a lower orbital altitude, and that means it's going to go faster. Orbital mechanics is funky. One of the quirks of the game is it doesn't rotate stuff while you're time warping. Okay, and we have stage recovered, and that's that guy we just got rid of. Distance wasn't good, but we had lots of shoots on and recovered 100% based on speed, so we just saved money. Okay, that's nice to know that worked. That's cool. We eventually will come around to the sunny side. Here comes your sunrise. That's cool. Take our time work back to 1. He's still wanting to go to... Oop, sorry. This guy's still set up to go to prograde. That'll work out because that's going to put that antenna where it's going to show up nicely in the sun. And that'll be a good experiment too to find out. Okay, currently we are sitting prograde. We're generating over 15 units of electricity. If we deploy this monster antenna at the front, this guy unfolds a lot. We'll see how much that changes, how much it blocks it. Okay, it's not as bad as I feared. It knocked it down by about half. So some of these are still getting a little bit. And it'll tell you. Sun exposure 0, blocked. Sun exposure 0. Oop, I didn't mean to do that. See, that one says it's getting some, so it's not a perfect simulation, but it does pretty good. Now it says we're making 13.9. How is that possible? Oh, I'm not going to argue with it. We might as well give this thing a target so it has a interplanetary antenna orbiting Kerbin to aim at. Until it's in a different sphere of influence, you need to specify the antenna. Once it's in a different sphere of influence around another planet or outside of this one, then you can just target the planet and it'll magically do stuff. Let's go to ComSat Kerbin Interplanetary 3. And it shows up here. And now it's just a matter of waiting for our interplanetary transfer window to open up, and then we can send it away. This mod here, you can tell it, we're going to Jool. We're currently at 100, we want to end at 100. When's our earliest departure? Well, what day is it? Kerbal alarm clock tells us it's year 6, day 232. For some reason this one's the latest departure, so we could say year 7. There's 426 Kerbin days in a Kerbin year. And this tells us, come on, that's our lowest delta V available within that time frame. So it says on year 6, day 403, we gots to go. We'll set all that up further, but meanwhile we'll add a alarm here to go on year 6. Day 403. Give us a time, yeah, 3:05. Kerbal alarm clock is your friend. We'll probably mess with this some more, but it lets us know we got to do something. So next time, this will be heading off to Jool, and eventually around one of Jool's moons. I thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more, hopefully.